Kate, and I am here with Seth David. He's a new contact I've made, introduced to him by Hector Garcia, and I've started to watch some of his material on YouTube, and he knows his stuff about QBO. So he's exclusively a QBO guy now. He's completely booted all his desktop ways, and so that's good to know because some of y'all don't want anything to do with QBO. And so, but that's what we're going to be talking about today. He's got a new course called Bulletproof Bookkeeping, and he is going to tell us about it today. And just in full disclosure, I do have an affiliate link for his course, but I have not taken his course yet. I introduce all the interviews this way. If you would like to buy through my affiliate link, I will appreciate that. But my goal here is not to be the one promoting the course, but to just be a conduit of information for Seth to be able to tell us what's outstanding about his course. So I would like to ask Seth now just to tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. And thank you for having me, Kate. It's an honor, and I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk with you. And hopefully my goal actually, more than anything else, is to educate and inspire people. That's what I hope we accomplish at the end of the day. If people want to sign up for my course, that's great. But if not, hopefully at the very least, we'll educate and inspire some people during the next hour or so, whatever it takes.
Okay.
So a little bit about me. I grew up in New York, and I started out as an auditor. I worked for a federal government program doing audits for Medicare and state Medicaid programs and things along those lines. And then long story short, I ended up in California, took a job at a large publicly traded company as a senior revenue accountant. From there, moved on to a CPA firm. And while I was at the CPA firm, I started my own business, which is called Nerd Enterprises.
Nerd Enterprises?
Nerd Enterprises.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So, and you can find it at nerdenterprises.com, easy enough. And I started out just doing basic bookkeeping consulting with people. In those days, it was all desktop. And I actually, before I even did QuickBooks stuff, this is an interesting fact, I started out actually providing consulting services with companies who needed help designing spreadsheets to accomplish various things. And in fact, one of my first projects there was with a guy who was running for city council in Beverly Hills. And basically, we were downloading voter data. We couldn't see who people voted for, of course, but we could tell whether or not they'd voted. And I wrote essentially like an application in Excel that looked at who voted, compared it with his list of known supporters, and we weeded out the ones who already voted, and then his staff would call on the people who hadn't voted yet to help encourage people to vote. And he did win the election. Not saying I can take credit for it, but you know.
You helped.
So that was my first ever consulting gig outside of working full time while I was at the CPA firm. And then it just grew from there. And over the years, I started developing more training. I was originally putting videos on YouTube to answer questions I was being asked often. And rather than I find myself retyping essentially the same emails over and over again. Then I got a little smarter and said, let me dig up the sent email from the last time I answered this question. And finally I said, let me just put these videos up on YouTube. I figured out a way to do it, and I did it. And next thing I know, without this being my intention, really, it took off. It got traction, and not only were a lot of business owners following my YouTube channel to learn how to post transactions, but it turned out a lot of bookkeepers and accountants who may have known their accounting stuff, but maybe didn't know QuickBooks so well in terms of the mechanics. You know, I built a following in a wide array of people, from business owners to accountants and bookkeepers. And
okay.
In a nutshell, that's my story.
So yeah, so you started off thinking you were helping business owners, but now, I mean, would you say in your day-to-day, do you find that you're helping accountants more? Is that who you're serving, or business owners, or do you think it's equal, or where has it kind of landed now?
It's really both. And what I find interesting, what I find most interesting about this really is that I've noticed a sort of specific division in terms of which group goes for which of my services, right?
Okay.
So, and the quick answer on that is a lot of the business owners come in specifically for my one-on-one, you know, where I log in with people remotely and they share their screen. They say, Seth, I'm stuck on XYZ. And I just, while I'm looking at their screen, I take them through it. I explain to them how to record it or how to clean something up. Sometimes it's really untangling things and putting them back together.
Right.
And then I record those sessions and give them the recordings afterwards. And that's what the business owners mostly go for. And I find that the accountants and bookkeepers are the ones who, by and large, are absorbing my online training, the pre-recorded, like the course that we've just released. And I've got other programs too. And that's what, and then I have a mentoring program for accountants and bookkeepers. It's called 97 and Up. And I have, that's where a lot of them come in. And really they have sort of more direct access to me and my guidance and advice on how to build, run, and grow a bookkeeping practice, as well as the bookkeeping skills. Sometimes people come in and say, I've never encountered how to do factoring receivables and how to record that. And, so they'll come in and ask me and I'll help them with that.
Awesome. While we're streaming here, I do want to let people know that you should be able to ask questions if you're watching this live. So don't hesitate to type a question, and we're trying to watch them on our screen to be able to pop in. But otherwise it's just going to be me asking questions. So I think you kind of answered what motivated you to create your course. I mean, you kind of saw a need, and that, people were getting, they would see a problem and need an expert. But do you have anything more to say about that question? I typically ask people, what motivated you to create specifically the course we're talking about today, the Bulletproof Bookkeeping course?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, over the years, there are a lot of well-known accounting professionals, who are well-known in the accounting community. And among them, a lot of books have been written, for how to be a successful QuickBooks consultant, or just how to learn how to use QuickBooks for this thing or that thing. And I thought many times over the years, I've thought about writing a book. And then it kind of hit me, and I said, there was always this hesitation about writing a book, and I couldn't quite put my fingers on it. And then finally I put my fingers on it, and I said, the reason I don't love the idea of writing a book is things change so fast in this world that by the time I get the book published, there's already going to be so much that I need to sort of rewrite or edit. And sure, I can publish, another edition of it or another release or whatever. And I said, it's just so much more versatile to put together an online course. And in fact, the way I've been describing it to people now that it's done, and it's really never completely done, but now that it's, released officially and whatnot, is that I tell people it's really like an online video textbook, because that's really because the lessons have screenshots and detailed write-ups in addition to the videos. So that's really what motivated me. Is I really wanted to create the quintessential resource for people to get access to how to do bookkeeping, but not just how to do bookkeeping, how to do it in what I describe as bulletproof, of course. And what I mean by bulletproof, really, in the end, it means you can prove every number. So that if somebody's scrutinizing your books for any reason, whether it's a banker considering whether or not you're creditworthy for a loan, or an investor considering whether or not to buy your company, or heaven forbid, the IRS auditing you, bottom line is you have not just the right documentation, but the right audit trail in place. So that if somebody's questioning a number, I can quickly and easily drill into the numbers, get them the detail, get them the backup, and it's done in such a way that it raises the fewest possible questions about what's going on when people are looking at detailed information and transaction reports.
So what's coming to mind now is, as you're talking about just such nitty gritty stuff. This group particularly has a lot of people who are very new, and maybe they took an accounting class 15 years ago, or maybe they've never even had one, but they're looking for a career change and they're willing to work hard. But it sounds like, well, does your course teach accounting? Sounds like it doesn't, but
it does.
Okay.
There's, in fact, the precursor to the whole course, which is a free video I have on YouTube, is called Bookkeeping Basics with QuickBooks Online.
Okay.
And it actually walks you through, if you go to school for accounting, in your first semester, your first class, you're going to learn debits and credits.
Right, exactly.
And so that video, it's a free 30 plus, slightly over 30-minute video that teaches you debits and credits. And I walk through, I think it's about 10 different transactions. And I use Google Sheets to create T accounts to demonstrate debits and credits. And I go through each of the 10 transactions. First, I show it in the T accounts, and then I go into QuickBooks Online and post the transaction. And then I refresh the balance sheet and the profit and loss to show what the impact is of those transactions. So you really understand not just the bookkeeping, but the actual mechanics of QuickBooks combined. And so you understand when you hit save and close on a transaction, exactly how it's impacting the books. And to me,
both sides, yeah.
Yep. And if you're doing bookkeeping, to me, that's so critically important. And the course kind of follows suit with that. It's not all in debits and credits, but I really, in each section, and I've written the course in such a way that it's in small bite-sized chunks. And there's some things that if you're newer, you might skip over for now because it's, because some of it does go deep. But the way I like to describe it is that the course goes deep, but it also goes wide, right? Meaning it covers a broad range. It really covers everything that you need to know, in my opinion, from A to Z in bookkeeping. And, like I said, you can kind of pick and choose what you need, or you can go through the whole thing sequentially, just depending on where you're at and what you're looking for. And that's what I really mean when I say I wanted to create the quintessential resource, that it's like having a bookkeeping encyclopedia on your shelf that you can pull out and reference what you need to when you need it.
Okay. So it says that you do teach accounting concepts. Does your course teach business concepts? Is this course, so the course that I took to get started building my bookkeeping business definitely had like nuts and bolts accounting section, and then it had a whole separate section of teaching you how to market, language, practicing networking, all that sort of build a business, entrepreneurship stuff.
Right.
Does your course have that or not? Okay, no.
No, it's really just focused on teaching you how to keep books, and like I said, how to keep them well, how to keep them bulletproof.
I think that's cool. That kind of flows into what would you say makes your course unique? And I'll let you answer that too, but I have been learning a lot about different courses. So I want to let people know that I think this is a huge thing that makes it unique. And there are actually lots of people in the group, who will say like, I need to learn the software. Like I've built 4 businesses and I've kept my books for my own business. Like I don't need business education. I need bookkeeping education.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say for those of you who are wanting to be laser focused on that, because the cool thing about people who are business owners, a lot of them like love business concepts. And so they might actually be sucked in by here's how to market your bookkeeping business and all that. And you don't need that, but you might like to listen to it, and you need to just cut that off and go with a product like yours that is laser focused on teaching, the nitty gritty stuff, not the soft stuff, the hard skills stuff. And then you can go use your already established networking and marketing and all that sort of soft side of the business. So, but what would you say makes your course unique, Seth?
So, and first of all, Phyllis is watching on the feed, and she's asking where to go to get the course. So Phyllis, Kate will post the link.
I have the link right here. I have it.
All right, perfect.
Phyllis, there you go. Thanks for catching that, Seth.
Sure. And so what makes this course unique? First of all, just going back to the previous question about, did I include aspects of building and growing the business in it? And like I said, the answer is no, but I also want to qualify why that is.
Okay.
I can certainly speak in depth to how to market an accounting or bookkeeping practice because I've been pretty successful with my own. But I also really felt it was important to stay very singularly focused on teaching bookkeeping with QuickBooks Online. And I felt that if anything, a marketing related course would be a whole separate course, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is and there was a time when I was really going out there and trying to be that to other accountants and bookkeepers and teach them how to grow and build and market their business. And earlier this year, probably more so than ever, I made a decision that if I was really going to take my own business where I wanted to, I needed to get very singularly focused and ask myself an important question. What is it that I really want to do? What is the one thing that I do better than anything else that I do? And the answer to that question that I came up with ultimately was, education and training in bookkeeping and accounting and productivity, right?
Okay.
So that's one of the reasons why I haven't touched the marketing part of it. I'm often asked, and I'll be asked to, to speak on people's webinars and talk about how I built and grew my own practice. And we've already kind of covered it. It was largely from just putting videos on YouTube,
Okay.
So if I have any marketing advice for anybody, that's the advice for today on that is, content. It shows people that you know what you're doing so you don't have to convince them, right? And that's how people have found me over the years. As far as what makes the course itself unique, again, I think it's the robustness of the resource. I've done a lot of research myself, of course, and looked at what other people were doing by way of bookkeeping courses. And I really feel that this is more robust than most anything you'll find out there, but it's also divided up into small digestible chunks so that this way, what it does is it provides you for, like I said earlier, the option of either just going through it sequentially because you're really just new at this and you want to start from the beginning, which is bank feeds. If you're in QuickBooks Online, in the online world, period, it really has to start with bank feeds. That's my opinion, of course. And then it goes all the way through to, the ultimate output of anybody's bookkeeping work, which is reports, right? And so, and everything in between, how to post the transactions. But the course kind of wraps up with a section on management reports. And I have a whole bunch of lessons. And then I go into analytics, how to analyze those reports. So we're almost starting to touch on beyond bookkeeping and into almost CFO level analytics. Right. I keep it pretty simple. I don't get too deep in that, but I do give you some examples of how to run through and analyze a balance sheet, a profit and loss. And there's an hour-long video in the course on the statement of cash flows, because I feel that's so important and so many people miss that. You know,
I think that's really great. You say that it's just sort of like just touching on CFO stuff, and like in actuality, that's probably true. But what most bookkeepers are able to bring to small business owners, like even just like that surface level management report, like, you know, not quite all the way to CFO, that's just so valuable that you almost don't even need more. I mean, if you can just get them that, like the stuff that you're talking about, that's going to be more than they've ever seen or dreamed of, you know? So yeah, that would be a great little like arsenal that you've built. Is just, it sounds like those few last reporting sections would be, I mean, it would just make you seem like these people want to just kiss you, you know? I mean, they're just like, your clients are just going to be like, I've never known any of this.
Yep.
So
yeah, and you're right.
awesome.
That most of them have probably not had the experience of having a bookkeeper who, certainly not who proactively, without the client asking, just went out and said, hey, by the way, here are some important reports in QuickBooks Online. For those who don't know, lets you automate them. So I can set up a group of reports and put them on a schedule and say, send these every Friday. And then as long as I know I've got a good bookkeeping process where, and this is how I do it in my firm when we're doing the books for clients, is I have, you know, a schedule where each client's books are getting done on a very specific day and time. And so I know I can arrange the schedule to go out usually 2 days after that day, because that gives us time in case there's something we realized we needed to catch and want to make sure it gets into the reports for that week. It gives us time to make sure we can get in there and make whatever updates we've caught. You know, so we, again, it's very systematic, but the point being, you can really wow the clients because of the ability to do that. I don't know of another cloud accounting app that lets you automate the sending of reports like that. I don't think Xero has it, unless they've added it recently, you know, since I checked. But that's one of the huge things about it. And just real quick, going, you know, back to the question of, you know, what I feel makes it unique. The other thing that I did with this, and I went back and forth before I finally decided to do it, is I've included a community. It's kind of like a Facebook group, but it's actually built into the website, where, and I've sectioned it based on each section of the course so that you can go in there and you can ask questions. And so obviously the course can't speak to your situation specifically or your client's situation specifically, because it's, you know, I don't have that information when I'm recording it, but now you can get that context because you can go into the community and it's included when you sign up for the course, and you can ask all the questions. You can also comment on the lessons, but the community is really designed for the Q&A. So, and I've had people go in there and say, hey, I have a client with X, Y, and Z, and they've given me detailed scenarios. And I don't mind. I go in there generally within 24 hours, usually a lot faster. I'm in there answering the questions, and I can post screenshots and even append it with more videos, you know, just to make sure I give clarity and context to my answers to their questions. So it's direct access to me for answers. I don't know of many courses, and certainly books, that you can get where you can get direct access to the author and get follow-up questions answered.
Well, that's super fascinating, because the course that I'm in has a Facebook group that I would say that possibly that alone was worth like the price of admission for me. I needed that camaraderie, and I needed other people saying like, I'm nervous, or I wasn't sure, I'm not sure about this. And, you know, there's a cheerleading aspect. And then there's definitely like answer your questions aspect as well. But it can be so hard to sift through Facebook groups. So you're saying, like, if I have a question about recording a loan, let's say, or like managing a loan, like my client just bought a truck, what do I do? If there's a video, I'm assuming you have a video about a loan and how to depreciate whatever. I ask my question like in that module, and then I'm seeing everyone else's questions that are just about recording a loan. Am I making sense?
Yes, I understand the question perfectly. So you can actually comment right there in the module on that lesson. Okay. But I've also, separate from that, there's a Bulletproof Bookkeeping community. So when you sign up on my site, there's a section called My Courses. And when you
Okay.
sign up for the course, you'll see the course, and then you'll see the Bulletproof Bookkeeping community. So
Okay.
you can also go into the community. That's where most people are going. And that's where, but in either place, you can see other people's comments or questions and the answers to the same. And then the community, like I said, is where I'm sort of encouraging most of that activity. And, but either way, you can go in there, in either place, you can ask the questions. And then, like I said, I get back and answer them. And there've been a few cases where the questions that were asked have given rise to me saying, you know what, I'm going to add another lesson or two to the course. So I've now got probably 4 or 5 planned lessons that aren't there yet, that weren't in the original outline, but I'm going to add them because it makes sense to.
Okay. So just to be clear, so when you get into the community, is it going to feel more like what a Facebook community is? So you will kind of lose, like, you don't get a whole section of questions about loans or a whole section of questions about opening balance equity or whatever. It's still all jimble jambled. Is that right?
No, it's broken down into sections. What I did was I modeled the community after the way the course was broken down. So there's a section on loans.
Okay, I got it. So that's awesome. So if you really wanted, like, I feel lots of times I might not even need to ask my question if I could just see everybody else's question about that topic. So that's really good organization. Even with my own Facebook group here, you know, I struggle with, like, gosh, like, that's why I built a website, because I was like, well, I know I answered that, but it's 3
you
months
can try
ago.
the search, and sometimes the search works well on Facebook groups, and sometimes there's just so much stuff in there that things get lost, even if you had a good search term in there.
Yeah, that's really robust. Yeah,
that's why I decided not to do a Facebook group, because this allowed me the ability to organize it, you know, so it's easy to find content.
Okay, I wrote another question that I wanted to ask, and I think it might kind of go with how you're describing the course, and talking about that, Jim, you just told us about, you have a schedule of sending automatic reports. Like, to me, that sounds great, but I definitely am not that formulaic about my work schedule, and I feel like you have to be. But that's kind of getting me to, like, are you teaching workflow or anything like that, to where we'll say, guys, here's how I manage 15, 20 clients, and I would use this app to make sure I do this day? Like, is any of that in there?
There's a bit of that. It's not heavy with it, I'll be honest, but there is a bit of that. I believe I do have a lesson that walks through exactly what I just talked about on how to automate your reports. I'm actually looking at the outline right now, just trying to confirm that real quick.
You have to, like, trust the process. And so that's what's scary for me. Like, I would want someone to say, like, here's how I've done it and why it works. Because otherwise I'd want to be manual, I guess. And the whole point of workflows is to get us to not be manual. Yeah.
Well, and my biggest concern from the beginning, and it definitely is more valid now than before, is, you know, look, hopefully, and assuming your goal is to grow and build a big business and something really substantial, you're going to get to a point where you cannot rely on what's in here to make sure you don't drop any balls. You need processes that assume you have zero independent recollection of anything. And if you start from that point and build the processes around that, then you have processes that are, again, sort of ironclad or bulletproof, that make it so that you never drop any balls, right? So I wouldn't want to rely on myself to have to manually go in every week and send the reports to the client, even though I'm in there every week. You know, I may not remember, because I may run late that day working on their stuff, and now I'm behind on something else. I'm in a rush, so it's very easy to forget something like that. So the moral of the story is, any repetitive process that can be automated should be, right? And I do have a lesson. It's called Scheduling Reports, and there's a video, and every lesson has a video. This one is 12 minutes and 42 seconds. So.
Do you talk about apps at all, outside of the stuff that QBO can do for you?
There is. So because it's Bulletproof Bookkeeping, which does, of course, concern itself very much with having very good documentation. There's an app and a lesson on the app that I talk about called Billbees. And there's lots of apps out there that you can use to capture copies of receipts and bills and things. Billbees is my favorite. For the biggest reason it's my favorite of them all is its interface and the ease with which you can retrieve bills. It has a really powerful search capability. It's also connected to QuickBooks Online.
Okay.
And there are other apps that do this, that'll like fetch your documents and whatnot. And they're not, in my opinion, they're not that reliable. A lot of things break. I get messages that I have to go feed the authentication code, which kind of defeats the purpose of having an app that's supposed to take care of this stuff for me, because I have to stop every day and update and feed codes.
It's the worst. Yeah, it's terrible.
Right. So these guys, these guys set up a very simple system. Some people will say, well, it's not as sophisticated, and maybe it isn't, but maybe it is more sophisticated in that it just works, which is that it's very simple. You have an email address that you can forward any bill and receipt to, or I can take a photo of a receipt with my mobile and just email it to that email address, which of course I've included it as a contact so that I can type 3 letters of the email and it autofills, and then I just hit send and I'm done. And I know it's going to show up, and Bilbies is actually going to read that bill with very sophisticated technology, and then it's going to make a decision. And that decision is there language on that bill that suggests it's going to be paid? Let's say there's language that says your auto payment will come out next week. If it sees that, it won't push it to QuickBooks, because the theory is it's going to download in the bank feeds anyway, and we don't want to duplicate, right?
Oh.
But
you still want the receipt, although we don't need to get into Bilbies, like
but you have the copy of the receipt in Bilbies, which is well archived, and they're working on developing the app to the point where it will push that that receipt through as an attachment to the transaction if it's already in there. But if it sees that the bill or receipt is devoid of anything indicating that it's going to be paid, it will push it into QuickBooks Online as an unpaid bill, which then you can obviously, and then it's there waiting to be paid. And then Bilbies also has a bill pay app, so you can actually connect your bank account and make all your payments out of it. So I like it because it's, again, when we're talking about bulletproof, we're talking about really having a clean audit trail, and Bilbies make it really easy in 2 seconds to go find the copy of whatever you need. And it even has a cool feature where you can, once you've chiseled the list down, you can export it to Google Sheets. And that Google Sheets export has a column which includes the link that you can click on to go view a copy of the bill. So it's just it's just really smart.
Well, that's cool. And I'm guessing probably over time, your community is going, like, you'll have other things that you're like, no, here's another great thing that makes your books bulletproof, and your system will, I assume there's lifetime access. So once you buy it, if you have another thing, you'll get to it. So, all right, that's cool. So I just trying to dissect what you said. So again, this course is like really, 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 really QBO only focused, but there are some things outside of the scope that are not just nuts and bolts where to click, but more of like a workflow consultation. And now you've talked about an app too. There is a little bit of that that grows out of, if it's related to making your books bulletproof, it's going to be in this course. So, okay. Well, I want to say, if anyone has a question, please chime in. And I'll go with my next one. So what sort of student is most successful in your course? And then conversely, are there any potential purchasers of this course that might not be successful?
So, I mean, it's a good question, actually. I haven't really thought much about it, to be very honest. But the first thought that comes to mind as far as who's going to be successful with this course, it's not so much about where you're at in life, I guess. What I want to say is it's going to be about how, like I said, it's a robust resource. But as the old expression goes, I can lead the horse to the water, but I can't make it drink, right? Okay. And I think that definitely applies here. I can give you the resource, but as a few people who have signed up, before signing up, they've reached out to me with similar kinds of questions and wanting to know, is there lifetime access? Yes, absolutely. I don't want people to feel like they're having to write a blank check and, paying for it even if they're not using it. And I really wanted it to be that reference material that they can pull off the digital shelf. But I think what it comes down to is you have to use it, right? And so what I say to people, if they ask, when you ask me that question, who's going to do well with this course? And I think my answer is the person who's going to do best with this course is the person who sets aside the time. And by that, I mean, you actually go into your calendar and say, on Mondays from 4 to 5, let's just say, I'm going to work on the Bulletproof Bookkeeping course. I'm going to do one lesson, right? If you're really new and starting out and planning on going through it from A to Z, then I suggest you just do one lesson a day. Some of the lessons might be a little shorter. So on those days, you can maybe do 2 or even 3 lessons. On the days when the lesson's a little longer, just do the one. But if you go through this doing one lesson a day and really pausing the video and taking notes, so that you're really learning from what you're doing, and even absolute best case scenario, having the what do you call it? Having the like a sample QuickBooks file open, right?
Okay.
And there's a QuickBooks Online test drive company you can go in there and play with, right? And if you Google QBO test drive, you'll find it in your search results. So you can go in there and practice what you're learning. So watch a little bit of the video, pause it, go practice, right? Best case, spend the money on them. You know, if you're an accountant or bookkeeper, you should have QuickBooks Online Accountant, right? Which is where you can have QBO for yourself and all of your clients. And with that, you get a discount on QBO. So just use one of those, pay for the company. It's worth it. So you can play around with your own company and, you know, import data, what have you. The first few lessons walk you through how to do that. So that's where you're going to get the most out of the course, is really by going through it one lesson at a time. Take notes and practice. Have a QBO company open that you can practice with. And that's who's going to do real well.
Okay. Okay. Anyone who would, I mean, I guess you could say someone who's not going to do that won't do well, but any other, like, a profile of someone who might not be, this course might not be a good fit for?
Well, certainly if you're not, you know, if you're not inclined to want to use QuickBooks Online, it's definitely not going to be for you. You know, oftentimes I think really where that question leads is this for somebody, you know, who's beginner level or somebody who's more advanced? And
Sure.
in truth, when I was designing the course, I was really sort of aiming it at somebody who's less experienced, maybe even the business owner who didn't want to hire or wasn't ready to hire their own bookkeeper yet. But as it started rolling out and I had pre-sold it while I was actually developing the course, I had CPAs and enrolled agents signing up who told me, even though they really knew the stuff pretty well already, they still found they learned some stuff. One of my colleagues refers to my quote unquote golden nuggets, which are just little pieces of information that oftentimes I'll just mention in passing while I'm talking about whatever the actual subject matter is. And she'll say, she'll like pause the video and catch that and things like, wow, I didn't know you could do that. You know, there's a comment I was going through the community a week or so ago, and I noticed a comment from somebody that underscores this, because she's a bookkeeper who I've known for a number of years. And she, in one of my videos talking about vendors and expenses and how to manage that part of things, there's a little tip I show where there's this little kind of window in between that pops in once you go into a vendor. And you can use the search box there to find other vendors. And a lot of people don't notice it because it's subtle. And they're, you know, and she said for like the last 2 years, I've been clicking back out to the main vendors area to go find another vendor. And a little thing like that just saved her a ton of time that I didn't think to highlight per se, because I just assumed people knew it. But because I happened to show it in the video and I did make reference to it as I showed it, you know, she said, you know, she was blown away. She loved that little tip. So it's things like that that you'll see throughout the whole course that a lot of people, even who are experienced, say they get, that's what they get out of it, you know, even if they already know accounting really well.
Awesome. Again, if anyone has a question, chime in now. We're coming to the end of my list. How much does your course cost, Seth?
At the time now, it is $1,000, $997. And I think I gave you the coupon code that people can use to get 25% off. If not, we can certainly post it here.
Yes, it was, I don't have it on there. Was it BP?
No, I can give it to you.
Yeah.
It's BB25, right?
BB25. All right. So that takes it down to $750.
Yep.
And so if you save yourself a few hours of work, guys, this will pay for itself. That's what I keep thinking about. When I'm thinking about, is this a course for someone like me? And so I have a small client base. I'm building my business as my kids grow. And so for me, I think being able to be more efficient, it would be like, that would be like the appeal for this for me. Like, just like the lady you said who didn't know how she had to back out to like find her vendor. You know, over time, even with the small amount of clients that I work on, that would allow me to bring on another monthly client potentially. So I don't know, I'm just kind of chewing on with this, and your concept of like potentially working through it a little bit at a time. Like I don't have, especially when I started 2.5 years ago, I don't have long stretches of time. And so the bite-sized approach to going through the course, that's what I need, you know, because if I'm not working on this before my kids get up, sometimes it might not happen that day. And I don't have a lot of time to just really sit and learn. And I think I've learned that with bookkeeping and with the software in particular, I think it's foolish to think like you're going to learn quick, like to plow through your course in like a week, like say I had complete free time, you're not going to learn it. I don't know. There's something about like the slow marinade that I think is really, I've just seen myself get to know material better. So anyone who thinks that like, oh, I'm just going to go learn QuickBooks fast in 2 days, weekend boot camp. It's like, there's just something about being in it for a long time that I don't know.
I posted a video recently where I sort of spoke to this concept, and I remembered that a number of years ago, a good friend of mine who's a writer, she's a professional writer for a living, but things were slow and she was trying to think of ways to pick up some extra money. And she kind of almost in passing mentioned that she was thinking maybe she would just pick up some bookkeeping clients as a, as a side hustle, right?
Right.
And so recently when I referenced back to that conversation, I mentioned, I said, that works well on the surface, right? You might be thinking, well, if I know how to write a check, I know how to do bookkeeping, right? I just have to code it somewhere and figure that out.
Yeah.
And I said, that all works great until you get to the end of, let's say, the first year that you've completed with a client, and the client comes back to you and he's looking at his P&L, or she's looking at her P&L, and they say, hey, you know what? My profit and loss says I made 150 grand, but I only have like 10 grand in the bank. Where's all the money, right? If your idea of bookkeeping is knowing how to write a check and therefore knowing how to code expenses and maybe posting and receiving payments on invoices, you're not going to be able to answer that question. And then your client's going to lose confidence in you.
Right.
And it's not what bookkeeping is meant to be all about. Recently I don't like to say I'm reading a book. I like to say I'm studying a book, which goes to what you said.
Okay.
This is not a course to be read or watched. First of all, it's over 13 hours of video as of now and counting. So if you rip through that in 2 weeks, you're going to barely scratch the surface of what there is to learn and gain out of it.
Well, that's not practicing, like you said, with the sample company open.
Mm-hmm.
I'm slow when I study and I'm like, oh gosh, what did he say back? What did he say back? What did he say?
Yeah. If it's 13 hours of video, in my opinion, it should take you a good 30 hours to get through the course collectively, right? You figure it's about a factor of 3, so a little more than 30 hours, right? Because if you're watching it and pausing it and going through it slowly and taking notes and practicing, yeah, it should take you at least double the time just to go through it once. And then you should be reviewing and going back to it, because then when you're practicing it later, and let's say you're on an actual client's books, and just a quick example. So let's say you get your first QuickBooks Online client and you say, woohoo, I'm glad I took Seth's course, right? And you get to that classic case that I've been describing with the bank feeds, where for some reason that you can't download the bank feeds from your client's bank account. And so you or your client call the bank and the bank says, it's not our problem, it's QuickBooks, right? And then you call QuickBooks support and they say, nope, it's not us, it's the bank, right? Well, I give you lessons that show you how to get around all that and walk you through in detail how to grab a CSV file from the bank account, code it, and usurp the bank feeds and import it directly. And if you do that, then when the bank feeds do start working, and they always get it fixed, but this way you don't have to get caught in the crossfire. Mm-hmm. Once you do download it, you'll have everything in the register. It'll just all match up. Point is, you can learn how to do that, but when you're stuck on your actual client, and you're like, I remember Seth showed me how to do that in that course, but you're not going to remember all the steps until you have a real live use case like that to go through it on.
Not at all. Yeah. I gotta open my videos like 3 times in the same case, like,
yeah,
I've done this before, but because I'm not doing it every day. So I think there's a lot of people in my group that are like that. Like, I am not onboarding a client even once a month. And so, like onboarding videos, sometimes I have to just go, and that's the choice I've made. Obviously I could become the world's best at like a few things, but I'm going to have to be practicing those a lot. And so just kind of my husband's a pilot. He calls them like the monkey skills. And he says, like, he's a worse pilot when he hasn't flown in a while. I'm a worse bookkeeper when I haven't book kept in a while. If I haven't done something, a particular situation. So, and I think there's a lot of people in the group that are like that, or, they're an accountant full time for a staff who uses some, their own accounting software, not QuickBooks Online. They know they could pass an accounting test, but just like, how does QuickBooks do that again? You'll have to do it lots of times, and you'll need the video to watch again and again. That's and I'm pretty smart, and I still have to watch my videos several times. So, and
that's why I didn't want to make it a monthly subscription, because I knew this was going to be the case. I knew that people were going to want to be able to reference this material over and over and over again. And I don't want people to have to worry that they're just going to be paying for it indefinitely. This way, you've paid one price, you've paid for it once, it's yours to keep.
All right, y'all. I have one last question for Seth. So if you have any questions, chime in now. He's been very generous with his time. I think that this would be a good fit for folks. He is in the Bookkeeping Side Hustle Facebook group now. So, I don't know how active he'll be in there, but try to tag him if you want. Or here's the question: where can people find out more about you, or if they have questions, how can they find you, Seth?
Sure. So yeah, if you tag me in the group, I will catch it and I will get back to you. Like I always say, usually within 24 hours. I try to do it a lot faster than that. Everything can be found actually if you go to nerdenterprises.com. That's the easiest thing to remember. Just go to nerdenterprises.com. When you go there, you'll find a big banner on the homepage that lets you know, hey, we've moved. And when you click on it, actually takes you over to the new website, which is actually at new.nerdenterprises.com. And that's where you'll see it's all right in the top navigation. You'll see a link to access all of my courses, including this one. This is kind of the big one that we've released this year. But I've released others. You mentioned onboarding. I've got a course that teaches you how to automate your whole onboarding process.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
So I've got, a good amount of stuff there and a lot more coming. So that's the best place to go. And of course, if you have questions, feel free, PM me. Just remember, if we're not actually friends in Facebook, I might not see the PM right away.
Right.
I'm not always good about catching those. I do try to look because I know it happens, but certainly comment on this very thread and tag me and, ask me anything you want. I'm very available, very accessible. I like to think of myself as an open book, and I really, like I said earlier, my hope today more than anything else is that hopefully we've educated and inspired some people, even with a tip like automating your reports in QuickBooks Online. If you go into a QuickBooks Online company and go to the reports area, it won't be hard to figure out how to do that. Search for it on YouTube, plenty of videos, I'm sure, that show you how to do it. You don't need me and you don't need my course for that. My course is for the whole big picture, everything in one reference resource that you can use. And as we've highlighted today, it will grow. We will keep adding to it because there are going to be questions, and there's just going to be logically lessons that need to be added to the course because they fit right in.
I thought of another question.
Sure.
Talk to the person in my group who is a QuickBooks desktop person and good at that and hates QBO. What do you have to say to that person? Because there's a lot of people. I think there's a lot of people who are maybe they've recently retired, and wow, if they could get 3 clients and have a little bit of extra cash flow a month, but while they're traveling around in their RV or whatever, and they're like, I hate QuickBooks Online. So talk to that person about maybe not even just selling your course, but what encouragement do you have to people like that who want to, I don't know what, I only know QBO, so I don't have a dog in the fight, but there seems like a big accounting fight that I'm not a part of, but I've just witnessed.
Yeah, there's I've seen it. I've experienced it firsthand, and I'll be honest. Let me actually start answering the question by not answering the question, but I have a point to why I want to kind of start there in answering the question. So I have my own Facebook group. It's called Between Wall and Main. You're welcome to join it. It's the idea is to kind of bridge the gap between Wall Street and Main Street, and to show companies, people with small businesses, but it's mostly accountants and bookkeepers, how to really understand how to run a business the way Wall Street companies do, obviously scaled and tailored to what a small business is like. And there's lots of people asking bookkeeping and accounting questions. So anyway, anybody's welcome to join there, but I've certainly seen it in my own Facebook group, and I belong to many others, and I see the constant sort of debate. QuickBooks Online isn't there yet. It doesn't have the features. Desktop does so much more. It's so much more robust. And there's some truth to that. It's not wrong, but but I'm going to be very honest, and please don't take this the wrong way. I don't mean to sound snarky. I just think it's short-sighted. And I'll give you an example, a very specific example of why and where it might be short-sighted. Yes, it's true that QuickBooks Online, especially if you have QuickBooks Enterprise Solutions with advanced inventory, right? For the amount of, you pay a lot of money for that product, but it's robust. It does a lot, right? You can do detailed inventory tracking with lot and serial numbers and all kinds of stuff. I know I still have people who hire me to train them in these products. I just don't let my clients use them, right? The ones who I'm doing the bookkeeping for. So if you get QuickBooks Online with an add-on product called Dear Inventory, you have all the same power, the exact same features at a fraction of the cost. Okay, not to mention all the advantages of the anytime, anywhere access and the dramatically increased efficiency that comes with having a cloud product, that's connected to other cloud products. My, the reason I said at the beginning of answering the question that I wanted to start out answering it by not answering it is because on some levels, very honestly, I've given up on trying to convince people, because I used to go into the Facebook groups and comment on the threads and try and convince them. And, after a while I was like, this is not a good use of my time trying to convince people. I know that it works for me. I know that and this is my opinion, but I can run circles around people using QuickBooks Desktop in terms of the volume of data that I can process, right? The efficiency from the automation. I can practically automate the whole bookkeeping process. In fact, a lot of people got mad this year and went into it, released QuickBooks Live, right? Which is their own kind of bookkeeping service. I didn't get mad at all. I said, bring it on. And I'll tell you why. Because for what they're charging, I think $400 or $500 a month for now, I can charge $250 to $350 a month, give them more personalized service, and automate it all day long. Because the bank feed rules in QBO are so much more powerful than the ones you have in desktop that I can practically automate the whole process. I can do detailed even if-then logic in my QuickBooks Online bank feed rules. I have a video out there where I explain that I can do, let's take Best Buy, for example, right? We all know Best Buy. A lot of us buy our computer equipment and things there. I can create a bank feed rule in QBO that I could never do in desktop that says, if the bank text contains the word Best Buy and the amount is over $500, book it to a fixed asset. And then another rule that says, if the bank text contains the word Best Buy and the amount is less than 500, book it to computer equipment. And so that right there knocks, it's just, I don't have to think, it's automated. And so when I apply those rules, I can even check off a checkbox, which I personally don't do yet. I'm not comfortable doing this yet, but I know a lot of people who are. I know
what you're going to say.
Yeah, the checkbox that says automatically coded. I still like to review it just to be sure, because it might not be computer equipment in either a fixed asset or an expense category. I might have gone to Best Buy and bought a TV. Or a refrigerator, flat screen, or a flat screen would be the equipment, right? So I still want the opportunity to review it just to be 1000% sure, just to be bulletproof about whether or not it's going to be coded in the right place. 99.9% of the time it is, and I can just see in the feed that there's been a rule applied, and I know that when it shows that little green rule icon, I know it's very reliable. I know I don't have to spend too much time scrutinizing or looking too closely, so it just saves time. So that's one of my big sort of arguments for why I think people are ill-advised. I get loving desktop and wanting to stay with it, but I think it's ill-advised not to start getting into and learning QuickBooks Online, because here's the other sort of end-all reason for it. Forget about what I think. Forget about my opinions. The bottom line is, in 5 to 10 years from now, there's not going to be a QuickBooks Desktop product anymore. Mark my words. I will bet you money that at the latest 10 years from now, if all you know is QuickBooks Desktop, you won't have a bookkeeping practice anymore.
Aren't they, haven't they already gotten rid of some of their pro advisor certifications on some of those products?
I don't know that they've gotten rid of them, but I know that, for example, the requirement to be in the Intuit Trainer Writer Network is only that you be certified in QuickBooks Online. You don't need to be certified in QuickBooks Desktop to be a member of that group. And it's kind of an elite group. Not everybody gets invited. It's gotten bigger over the years, but I think that's very telling. The fact that they require a certification, but it's only a QuickBooks Online certification, I think says a lot about where they're headed as a company with their products.
Awesome. Hey, I want to be respectful of your time. So I'm just so glad you talked to us. And I don't know, I have visions of specific people in the group who I think this is the course for them. I'm not gonna tell them my job's not to be a salesman really, but right. I think this is going to be a good fit for some people. It's definitely different than anyone I've talked to who are trying to help people move the needle towards like building the business that they want and the life that they want. That's my goal, to provide resources to be able to do that. And I think I can see how this course would fit into that plan for some folks. So awesome. Well, we'll let you go make some new videos for your course or whatever you do next. Thanks again for jumping on with us. And I'm glad you're in our group now.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.